quiet sync this week. Let's pull up the agenda real quick. Yeah, so I guess the first item is yours, Niels, which is the Java PR for Maven Central Access. I can take a look at it. I should be able to give you Maven credentials. I'll put an action item for myself on this.
Yeah, that would be great.
For a few notes. That's easy enough.
Mm-hmm.
And the next item I had was actually, now that we've landed a bunch of the test changes for unsigned integers, I'm going about updating the Caden's original PR for unsigned integers with it. And I'm wondering if it's actually just worth making a fresh one. I was debating making a fresh one where we just add the types and add just like less functions and verify that, and then add more functions after, just to make that review a bit easier again.
Yeah, I did take a brief look, and I remembered you had this issue where you discussed various requirements for making this work. I didn't remember seeing these user-defined type constructor functions that you were discussing in SPR. So not sure if you were planning to.
I was doing the upgrade for that behind the scenes. Like I've been doing that locally, and it touches everything, and it gets a bit messy, and actually does require some. There's more changes needed to do aggregate tests. So I was debating just doing, let's just do add, divide, subtract, like all the scalar tests, and yeah, just do scalar tests and just do unsigned integers for that as like the basic test bed, and we can add aggregate functions after. So like making a separate PR with the updated entirely. It should hopefully also be easier to read, because a lot of the changes that Caden made were also, some of them were independent and they've been merged independently.
Yeah, and didn't you plan to introduce these like user-defined type constructor functions?
That's what I've been working on. That's just a bit more intrusive than I thought it was going to be.
Okay, I was wondering whether those would be used in the unsigned integer PR.
Yes. So part of the PR is adding the constructor functions for them into the extensions, adding tests for those constructor functions, and using those functions to test the other functions.
Yeah. Okay.
I think in conversation with you, I'm just going to make a separate PR. It's out of date enough that I would want people to look at it fresh, anyways. And then there's still, I think, the big open question is, or the more open question is, what do we want the structure representation for unsigned integers to look like? I think that's still a conversation, but that'll be with the layer of indirection provided by the constructor functions. That's much more narrow, and the only places that really impacts are the tests for the constructor functions themselves, where you don't want to use a constructor function to test a constructor function.
Yep. Okay.
Cool. Yeah, I'll do that. I'll make a new PR with just like the specifications there. Cool. Final call for the unbound type PR.
Yeah, that's what I'm calling it. At least I think I did take a look. I think it looks okay for just the unbound type. It doesn't introduce the unbound function feature yet. The idea is to do that in a follow-up. I know Yongchul has also taken a look at the unbound type PR and left his approval with two comments. I think there's one small aspect that I highlighted where I wasn't sure how we want to deal with that. But yeah, I would like to help this contributor get some final recommendations to implement, so that we can help to close this, so we can move on to the unbound function PR.
Message unbound. Yeah, I can take a look at this. I like the name unbound.
Yeah, the one topic I was wondering is he added a description for the interaction with any in like one direction. But then I was wondering whether in the other direction, whether we should specify write down that any also matches unbound like any other type. And if there are any side effects, and I think Yongchul, you were saying maybe there are side effects. So
any
yeah, I think
also matches unbound.
Yeah.
I don't think you can. Is any a concrete binding? So, like a different way. I don't think you can have a schema. Well, I guess there's something restricting it. Like if you have an any in a schema, that's kind of weird.
So if you have a function definition that accepts any argument, then it normally means it can be any type. And unbound would be one more type that would also be accepted.
I think I'm not sure that even makes sense. Because we are also using any with like any one and any two.
Yeah.
And all these things. And then now like you have, I think I left in the comments. So you have like with a bunch of any, and you have like unbound, and then what do you do? Like unbound 1 and unbound 2. so I don't know whether it actually makes sense to even deferring that any, or so basically if there's like unbound, like I don't know whether we can do anything meaningful. So any is like strictly for function binding, right? But we cannot really bind like any functions at that point. So
exactly. So I was wondering, because we are postponing the function introduction into follow-up PR, and now we have this unbound type, but we may already have functions that define any arguments. Do we need to make any statement about what happens in this case? Like forbid it, allow it? Like, is that one of the last things missing on this PR to say what?
My 2 cents is just dropping that clause. We don't. I mean, it's unbound. Like we don't bind basically. So there's no. We are just not doing this, trying to bind unbound to any. That's it.
Yeah.
And I guess the other thing is, having done the quick skim right now, like there's I guess there's 2 things I'd like to see. Is one is an example plan that contains unbound, and more specifically an example plan that contains unbound that's using it in a function call as well. It's like part of what I'm not sure is, how do you refer to a function if one of the inputs is unbound, if that makes sense? Because the function signatures right now are like, oh, I have add I64 underscore. And like, do we want to change how we do, oh, if it's unbound, do we want to do a different, like it might be the case, like for unbound functions, we just reference the name, or we signal it, hey, the function we're looking to use is this function. We don't know which variant yet.
Yeah, I think that will be in the follow-up PR, this discussion.
Why would that be? Why would that be part of the follow-up and not part of this PR? Because I guess like that, I don't know if you can separate that part out of it.
Yeah, so I mean that's at least the proposal from the contributor. I think that it's okay. I mean, the idea would be for this PR to just introduce the new unbound type, and then in a follow-up deal with how it interacts with functions. I think that's okay. You have an unbound type that is not very useful other than using it in a base schema. You cannot really have any expressions against it. It's okay, I would say.
The thing is, it's leaky, right? Because you like the way that it works in my head is, if you have an unbound type in the schema, then that unboundness propagates up the entire plan tree, and anywhere that you use it is unbound. So any function calls with it are unbound. So like you end up with like invalid plans.
No, just the unbound plan.
Unbound plan.
Partially bound plan. Let's say
the whole function resolution doesn't work because it's undefined right now.
I mean, we just simply cannot bind. all the functions. So that will just be delayed until the concrete type is known. Then it'll do all the bindings and all these things.
Yes, but you still need to include the function as an extension in the plan. You're saying, okay, there's an unbound type, and it's going to use this function. At some point, it's going to be bound. It could use one of the variants of this function, right?
Right, but there's no way to do that, right? So
but that's what I mean. Like, if you have this, like, you can't send a valid plan because we haven't loosened the restriction saying there's a way to you can reference a function by just the name and not the specific implementation.
Yeah, I think the idea here is to introduce the unbound type in the spec, and that doesn't mean that we can upgrade the producers and consumers that want to deal with unbound types or unbound plans right away until the function PR is also in.
But I guess the thing that I'm saying is that if you upgrade, you have an unbound type.
Yeah.
And then, for example, Isthmus right now, when you try to parse that plan, the function signature that you'll see for, like, if you have a function using it, the function signature will be invalid, so it'll also be rejected. And we don't have any rules about what that should look like.
Exactly.
Right.
And that will be in the follow-up.
Like, I guess I'm just not sure why that would be in the follow-up versus just having that feels like part of the original. Like, I guess part of it is like the implications of adding the unbound type for me are here's the unbound type and here's how it interacts with the outputs of relations and then also function calls, which are the places where we use types.
Yeah.
And that's a separate conversation from like names, but I think this feels like it's part of.
I agree.
I'm not opposed to leaving it as a fault. Like, well, I'm not.
I agree that unbound type by itself is not very useful. However, we could merge this as a work in progress to say, okay, now let's add the unbound type, and then in the follow-up make it useful by solving the whole function binding topic. It's just about not growing the PR much bigger and not extending the discussion.
I mean, so it is okay. I mean, it is okay. And so if we just have an unbound type, basically we can, I mean, use it as is for now as state of this PR. We can just use it to mark like some unknown extra payload. So there are like, I don't know, like there's like, let's say you design a, say, get API for a certain table and you have a key. So those keys are appear as a fully bound, but you don't really know like which column that you additionally select. So those columns can be unbound and then just represented as substrate, and then depending on like later, like, they can be bound. So yeah, it has, I mean, that's like one of the, you know, like made up use case. So it just cannot, as is unbound type alone, just cannot appear as a functions or expressions. But I mean, we can use it.
The unbound type not appear in functions and expressions.
So you could. So if we would just introduce the unbound type right now, then and we would allow that functions that are defined as accepting any argument, then you can at least create some simple plans for functions like equals, for example, and field references to columns that have been defined as unbound. So you could define basic filters and some.
You say at that point equals any is like a valid signature if it contains. I guess you could add that call to say at this point in time only unbound can only use for functions that consume any.
And we are just not defining anything more than that at this point in time. We're solving this in a follow-up.
Yeah. I guess I just wasn't sure. Like the value of this seems very limited unless we also figure out like how to do functions. If you put an explicit restriction on saying like at this point in time, unbound can only like if you're calling the function with unbound, it can only be used with like any basically. And we will look at expanding this like in the future. That makes sense.
Yeah, and the near future. So the idea will be a follow-up.
I guess the worst case for me is we do this and then we realize that, because of the way it interacts with functions, we need to tweak the unbound thing internally. And we probably won't need to do that. But like that's kind of where it's like, I'm not opposed to shipping this. I'm not fully opposed to shipping this piecemeal. I'll take a look at it later today as well.
exactly. I mean, if you find something that that leads us to a decision to not merge, it's also fine. I just want to check if you you guys find anything severe that would prevent us from doing that. Yeah. But my feeling is it's okay. There's some utility, and to make it actually fully usable, we have to follow up in the very near future.
Yeah.
Okay. That seems reasonable.
I also interesting side note. I did search on Google Scholar the other day for papers mentioning Substrate in the this year and last year, and I found a paper from Databricks where they were talking about Spark Connect. And they were saying they were actually considering using Substrate for Spark Connect, but they didn't use it because they didn't have support for unresolved plans. So,
Okay, that's interesting.
interesting.
So actually, speaking of which, the tangents related to this also. Someone at Microsoft opened up an issue about deferred schemas, which is tangentially related to the unbound type. This is Kurt Hagenlucker, Young Troll. I think I met him. I'll link the issue.
Can you?
He linked to like the ongoing work on the unbound typing. Like, oh, we might also want this.
Oh, last week.
Yeah.
Oh, Power BI. Okay, so must be in the same building.
I did actually met him in person last week and asked him if you two knew each other. He's like, no. I'm like, I was like, hey, I should talk to Young Troll. He's thinking about this too.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, I think that makes sense. We can follow up after.
That's nice. Yeah.
I guess actually for Young Troll, you missed this initial bit. We were talking about the unsigned integer PR. Now that the various testing niceties are included, I'm gonna make a new PR based on that one and just include only the scalar functions just to make that review surface smaller. And the tests are changing enough that I think it's worth a re-review, but I'll be making that update soon.
Okay.
Cool. And then review requests. Oh, I guess actually I'll start with the last one. Lateral join. I guess did you update it to just include custom single relation neutral?
Right. So it adds it's a separate thing. It's not bundled with the join anymore. It's a lateral join rel. And I also included changes in the dialects. So it will, I believe, 1 second. So yeah, so there's a dialect change, and yeah, I think it's basically address all the comments from.
Oh, and you can reuse the join rel join type enum.
Oh. I did that, but we can also create like yet another.
Well, I actually like that. Actually, I was like, we should make a separate one to move everything to it, but maybe we should just move as many of them to join rel join type.
Yeah.
Anyways, no, this looks reasonable. I'll put this on my queue.
So that's mine. There's also, while we are working on our internal stuff, we found that yet another integer literal thing.
I think we lost Victor.
Oh, we lost Victor.
I closed the right tab trying to find it.
Cat?
Many tabs.
So that's lateral join, and then the other one is we found that there's another restrictions that similar, like fetch-rel initially had only support like just integer literal. When we extended to expression to support expressions, same thing happens with the window function, window aggregate, where preceding and following can be expressions from the column. So also that PR is extending that, so adding that. One news comments was like, okay, like the other one we deprecated and why we are not deprecating here. Well, I am basically trying to follow the recent deprecation discussion we had. So deprecation is just a separate PR that. So that's why I didn't mark it as a deprecated in the PR. But if everyone feels okay, I'm happy to mark it deprecated.
Yeah, we could mark it as offset and offset expression. The one thing I need to think about for this is I know that this came up with aggregates where actually this might be separate. Like this might be a calce quirk that I'm used to, but I think it requires that all of the expressions that you're using for any kind of grouping or windowing are just field references. And I don't know if that restriction is reasonable here to say like, okay, actually, no, if you want to have some kind of dynamic offset, can the offset be based on like windowing functions, or is the offset?
So yeah, so so in SQL Server, the restrictions, the expression restriction is basically any scalar expression except the analytical functions, which means in window aggregates.
I think this would be good. This could be good for examples actually, because every time I think about window functions, it's like I need to look at what they're doing.
Yeah. So
I guess I'm thinking about like what's an example of a window function where you want to put expressions in that position?
Preceding, basically you put, or you're essentially doing the window aggregate with some sort of like spec table, and then and this spec table basically contains the keys and the windowing, like preceding or following spec. So you use that one and then do the it's more like elaborated scenario, but apparently, yeah, the systems do support.
Yeah, no, I can both see that as a thing that systems support, and then also thinking about how that it's implemented. Okay.
Yeah.
But an example query would be useful.
Okay. Yeah.
And I guess the plan is that I think for what we've done for fetch-rel, right, is that we added the new offset mode. Okay, we deprecated just the integer offset and just set expression. And then I guess consumers could then check if the expression is just a literal, then you can do the simple processing, and if it's not,
right,
do it that way.
Yeah. So
yeah,
I don't know. Like it could be.
If we deprecate it right away, then we may not need the dialect modification.
If it is deprecated, that's a good point. 1 second. So, okay, so this actually goes back to this like compatibility mode or dialect. So clearly, for the fetch rail or even this window aggregation, like certain systems like only support like integer literal, while some other systems can just support like generic expressions. Do we need to include that or express that in terms of like dialect, or?
Oh, can that even be captured in the dialect?
Yeah.
Same for fetch-rel, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you cannot express it at the granularity that you would need to express it. Yeah. And you have that everywhere where expressions can show up. And
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
so it needs to be. I mean, the easiest way would be just a separate dedicated option in the dialect. Do you support like generic expression there?
Yeah, or I mean, the question is whether we need to complicate the dialect right away, or we wait for a case where this is required. We do have some cases where we have engines where joins can only be done on field references, essentially, and only on equality conditions and so on, like in hash join and so on. And then you would want to restrict it maybe also on the logical join already, but yeah, I would probably wait a little until this is an actual problem. And you could say the dialect is like a first line of defense, and then a system can still kind of reject a plan that has features it cannot support.
Yeah. Makes sense. Yeah. I mean, it just came to mind that, yeah. So, I mean, I had another compatibility proposal for the group by. It's been closed because of this new gatekeeping thing. But
we can reopen things that no one will judge you.
Right. Yeah. So that was like basically say prescribing certain implementation specific behavior for the aggregate rail, and maybe this is another such that, like for this fetch rail or window rail, like maybe this is one of the common, say, what do you call, like popular deviating behavior, say, deviating or like supported, whatever. It could be like one of these cases. Anyway, okay, yeah.
I guess actually one question about this, the window rail stuff, like we're talking about here. Would the plan be to support both offset and offset expression, or just would we eventually just we only support offset expr?
I mean, my opinion would be just use expression.
Yeah, so you would deprecate offset, switch to offset expr. So you would add the one-off, deprecate the old one, and then remove the one-off.
Remove the one-off, yes.
So I know that this is based on the thing that we've done in the past, but I'm realizing that is quite painful for other reasons. As opposed to just having the two fields coexist, you deprecate the old one and you say you preferentially use the new one, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Let us dual write them, which is also nice.
Ben is a big proponent of using one-off, because like why do you have?
Oh, see, so Ben's on PTO right now, but I have a reason that if I tell Ben, he'd be like, please no, which is making it a one-off is a breaking change in the generated Go code.
Oh, okay.
That is a thing that's bit us multiple times in the past. And if the plan is to deprecate it, remove it, and then get rid of the one-off, it feels like adding a one-off to get rid of it just feels like extra steps versus having the two fields coexist.
Yeah. Especially
because thanks to Nils, we're pushing us on actually deprecating stuff. It'll coexist less.
I'm fine, but in this particular case, one-off is not too painful because the other one is message, so it's an explicit presence, explicit. So like removing one-off doesn't change anything.
Oh, I see. Yeah, there's cases where like expression offset expr is hard to tell if it's set because of presence things. Right. I forget that protobuf does that. Yeah, because otherwise.
Yeah. I mean, there's like
if they're both simple types, primitive types, then that's the problem because they get the default values.
Exactly. Okay. So that's the problem. Like primitive type is an old quirk, but message type is slightly better because it's always explicitly present.
I think we ran into that with like the URI URN stuff where we couldn't tell if the extension was unset. We had to do a bunch of curse logic.
Exactly. That's like recently I realize that string is also primitive type.
And it's extra cursed when the allowed value is 0, which actually is an issue with like the fetch roll a little bit, where I think because of that's a one-off. Anyways, no, if you're open to it, I'll make like the one suggestion I make. I think it makes sense to let if you could add a SQL example as well just to motivate it.
Do you want to see that example as a Substrate documentation or in the PR description?
No, just an example SQL plan, like SQL query that like would use this feature.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm just like,
yeah.
I mean, do I want to know more about window functions? Not really, but I would like to see what people would use this for.
Window function is the one of the things that you want to touch the last. That's like probably second or third last. I mean, my top choice is always collation.
Oh yeah, speaking of which, are you still looking into that?
Like there's other team now it's public. So I have been working on this GPU accelerated code execution. They are using Substrate internally. So I was helping them to making some changes there. Recently they are starting to talk about, hey, what do you do with the collations? And I am working on it or thinking about it.
We've had a somewhat similar thing where some internally developers have been like, oh, we're starting to run into like collation issues across engines. We can probably get away with it with just like doing a plan level collation and just and because we mostly care about sorts, but it's I'm hoping if I wait long enough that someone will force you to do it.
Yeah. So I mean, I have some thoughts, but I mean this thing is just I just don't want to think about it. But unfortunately, so they're like, somehow we need a way to nicely capture the ICU collation, like all these like configuration options. Like that's one like vast majority of like collation related things. And then there's I don't know if we want to get there, but there's this system called the GNU glibc or POSIX thing. That is another camp. And then there's also this like Windows SQL Server camp. But
gotcha. So it's like we can bake ICU collations into the spec probably, and then in all likelihood, like the GNU collations and like any Microsoft specific or Windows specific collations would be like extensions or.
Something along that line. So at least we need a way to capture like ICU collation, and then there must be a way to capture the custom collation, of course, like non-ICU but like custom. That will like it's like immediate relief, but based on whatever the community response or usage. I have full motivation to support like Windows / SQL Server collation, but but like just looking at ICU collation, there's
doing it. There's also figuring out how do we verify. Okay, we can do ICU collation. It's like, okay, can we write test vectors that actually make sure that the systems in question respect the ICU collations when we get them done? Is like a different question.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's good to know that you're still thinking about it. If I wait long enough, maybe someone else will solve the problems for me.
That would be nice. Yeah.
So I'm waiting on you, and then I'm really hoping someone will solve match recognize for us at some point before we get to that.
But it is like a major overhaul to. So basically, it will be. I think. Let's see. So it needs the collation needs to be bared in the type.
Yeah.
And then there's also collate functions that doing the collation. And once you add the collated string type, then all these string functions needs to be redefined, or like.
Yeah, there's like there's something to be said. Like there feels like there's something in there around type variations potentially, but I think that's more for physical encodings.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
more
metadata in types is a thing that could potentially make sense.
It type metadata, that's interesting, but I mean this collated string needs to be propagated.
Because you're talking about systems where you have columns of like with different collations that you need to deal with.
Yeah.
Because I'm mostly thinking about it in the context of I'm setting the default collation across the whole plane, which is like the nicer version of this somewhat.
which is fine, but but yeah, I mean, it ultimately there are like a lot of systems that actually support storing different.
Oh yeah, no, I believe you. I just don't have to deal with them yet, so I'm not worried about solving it at that level yet.
But yeah,
I do want to say before we get too far into collation, because we can talk about it for hours. I guess Nils, you have a substrate validator PR for your migration, but it looks like you've already looked at it.
I left a comment. I just look into the test. Test looks good.
Yeah, no, I'm not. I almost think of that as abandonware sometimes. So if you're looking at it and it's working, I'm not going to go ahead.
The substrate validator has like an all capital experimental in the README. So I would say I'm just trying to get it up to date to so that it would run with the latest spec, which the spec also changes, but just get as close as possible. And then do an inventory of the rules that are implemented and add or update rules so that we get it in a state where it's up to date. That's one of my goals. Just like I'm also going through at least so mainly Java and Python to also get it up to the latest spec. And so because we have teams using both Java and Python, and then we have some plans that use deprecated features that are going to be dropped, and one of the libraries already has them dropped. And we have
we had the discussion in your work on the execution behavior where we would like to get to a point where we can rely on the version, but what we almost need is a set of here's the test vectors for all the individual features. Run them against all the here's the plan that uses unbound. Here's the plan that uses this feature. Here's the plan that uses this feature. Run an execution matrix against, or run these against every library, and then have a generated test matrix of like what supports what, and then we can hammer that out.
Yeah. So one of my team members has recently published a workshop paper. He has been looking in like a refactoring essentially of the consumer testing repo into a decentralized approach, because I think that would scale better if we would ship like a test kit that then each of the producers and consumers can certify themselves against. And then if they wanted to, they could send like the certification report to a central repo where we could have an overview. And like the function test cases that we have in the spec repo, plus maybe some sample plans like TPCH, TPCDS, are the foundation currently for this repo. And we are looking into getting that in a shape where we can open source that, and then also see how we are going to integrate it into the existing Substrate repos. But I think that will hopefully help get a better sense of what the support level is of Substrate features across different integrations.
Right. This motivates me to also, on the topic of open sourcing something, is that we have parallel invented something similar internally that we've been meaning to open source, which is effectively, we call it Substrate Conformance. There's a repo that it takes all the test cases and generates basically these big YAML files, which like embed the converted substrate plans alongside the expected results. So if your system wants to run it, all it needs to do is integrate with like the test form that says, hey, run this plan. You expect an error, or you expect columns of these types, or you expect these rows returning. And we've done that for all the test cases. I have an intern working right now actually on making it easier for us to write relation tests using our like substrate explain format. It's been on my list of open source that we can start talking about, because we run it internally against Data Fusion. And what I want to be able to do, to your point, is publish a set of like standard tests somewhere central, and then integrate it into Data Fusion CI, integrate it into like Substrate Java CI and Substrate Go CI, and be like, hey, like here's a check that you can do periodically that tells you like how you're doing.
Yeah, and then the other thing that we are looking into is Substrate to SQL adapters in a way, because it is very difficult right now, because Calcite doesn't properly abstract away SQL dialects in its internal relational algebra representation.
Mhm.
But we have an abstraction with Substrate, and we are looking into in a way what we have been contributing to Substrate Java with the PostgreSQL integration testing is the first step towards that. To say, okay, we want to provide to the community a set of Substrate to SQL adapters that have been tested, where we know ultimately, hopefully, that all of the default Substrate functions are mapped correctly to the correct SQL statements to maybe get more adoption of Substrate to such an entry point. Yeah.
Mhm.
So if you wanted to join into that effort, you're also welcome. Yeah. That's something I think would be great.
Since
Okay,
we are
yeah, I've seen some of those PRs, and I think the thing I didn't realize that integration payment, because I think I pushed for is having Substrate Java focused on mapping from Substrate to calcite, and then leaving the SQL side, the translation side, to Substrate effectively, or leaving. Okay, I guess yeah, leaving the going from calcite to SQL for me is almost entirely a calcite concern, where that's what that library does. Except some of the issues to your point are about dialects. But is that if you're using dynamic functions? If you map a function correctly into calcite's internal operators,
yeah,
is it reflected there correctly?
The problem is that the functions in calcite are not abstracted away cleanly. So you have you have a lot of predefined calcite functions which only are valid for certain dialects. So you have, for example, parse date that exists in BigQuery, and then you have a calcite chips with a definition of the parse date function for BigQuery, and in other databases, this would be called toDate, and it would use completely different format identifiers than the BigQuery one. And they didn't clearly separate them. And I think Julian Hyde was also highlighting that in one of the Substrate mailing list posts that he made. And they were also discussing this on the calcite mailing list, that the current implementation in calcite is not clearly abstracting away dialects, both from a SQL parsing and a SQL generation aspect. And they were contemplating using Substrate as the abstraction format.
Gotcha.
And yeah, I think the dynamic function feature that Anton from my team added allows us to automatically have any function that has not been mapped yet in Isthmus available as a calcite function call, just exactly as we defined them in Substrate. But then in this for SQL generation in the calcite, we would need to modify the SQL dialect classes to know how to take the Substrate functions and generate the correct SQL dialect functions from that. So,
and that's almost that feels like metadata that could either live alongside the function definitions, or you redefine per engine or per target dialects, and you say, hey, the dialect for PostgreSQL has these functions, and by the way, actually we have this in the dialect. The SQL name for add in Postgres is infix plus or whatever, and do it that way.
Exactly, it is a hybrid in a way of in my mind of a Substrate dialect, where the Substrate dialect would define the subset of the Substrate features that this SQL dialect translation supports, and then translations between the subset of Substrate
I
features.
guess actually the translation wise, it would almost be in my head, the dialect would be one-to-one with the SQL that you can encode. They're saying, oh, so if you have something in the Postgres dialect that you can't map to the SQL, then it's in theory you can't support it in Postgres anyway, so you can't generate a function for it.
Exactly. So they are highly correlated. And I was thinking of changing Isthmus, changing essentially the converter provider configuration to be constructed from a Substrate dialect, because the Substrate dialect gives you information about the supported type system, and now with some of the recent modifications, also the supported scales and precisions and so on, and that
Gotcha. You can build a converter, I don't know, just from the extensions. You can build one that's like actually take the extension plus the dialect and use that to pre-filter and add additional information.
Exactly. So you can configure the type system, configure all the supported relations, supported functions, and so on. So that's kind of what I think how this could work. Yeah.
The one limitation that I worry about with the dynamic function approach, which is the reason why I didn't want it turned on by default, is that if you're using calcite for optimization, there's a bit of a trick there where like calcite does depend on, it does optimization sometimes based on specific operators, and it's doing like class level checks to be like, oh, I know what this function is, so I can optimize around it, or I can do constant folding. And in the dynamic function approach, that doesn't work. So there's kind of a trick there where like it's tricky because sometimes you do want to use the calcite functions when possible, because that is good for the optimizer, but that also makes it hard to generate SQL from it, potentially.
It makes it harder to reuse existing calcite functions, but I think that if you seriously wanted to implement an optimizer using calcite, you would anyway write your own functions.
We map like we map a bunch of boring internal stuff to calcite, and then we also have our own like function definitions that we add that aren't dynamic. And actually, to the point about, we were talking about like, we should have a set of test vectors that we run against, data fusion and all these other systems. Calcite itself is also a system that we should be validating to make sure like, hey, we're mapping functions into calcite. Does calcite actually agree with what we think that it's doing in Substrate? So that's also a big point of there's cases where Substrate disagree, or where calcite and Substrate have different like nullability handling or output types, and it does cause problems.
Yeah, sure. I as I said, in theory, if calcite had a clean abstraction, that would be the right thing to do. It breaks down, unfortunately, relatively quickly because the abstraction is not very clean. Yeah. But
this is the first question, but I guess we can work around that in Substrate, but should we also, like, is that a thing that could be worth fixing in calcite itself and making it be able to do the things we need to do?
Exactly. I think in order to figure out what needs fixing, we can work around it, and then see whether we can create enough momentum to work with the calcite community to also change calcite. Because I think that was what has been missing in the mailing list discussions that have happened around this topic. There was a little bit of interest of people using it. If there was a calcite that had cleaner abstractions that could parse any SQL dialect and generate any SQL dialect cleanly, but there wasn't enough momentum for people to actually contribute to it and create.
People really would love to have some kind of SQL parser for this and generate. They don't want to write one, and I understand why. No, and to be fair, I actually think doing it in Isthmus and trying to do it so that we can do it in Substrate is worth doing. And then that, to your point, becomes a good test, but to be like, hey, so here's what we have to work around. Here's what we like to do. It works pretty well. Can we modify calcite to let us do this and this and this more easily? And then you can integrate the two systems. I think that's actually a completely reasonable approach.
Yeah.
And I think there's like I said, there's a bit of tension between like the dynamic function approach and like the built-in approach, but I don't think that they're oppositional. It's just like, in cases we care about, you want to map to standard functions when possible. And there's even a world where you say, oh, you know what? Convert from Substrate to calcite using non-dynamic functions, optimize that, convert back to Substrate, convert back to calcite using dynamic functions, and then generate SQL. And yeah. We do have 5 minutes. I actually want to ask you one more thing about your PRs, Nils, for the packaging. Are they shipping dev versions of it, like pre-release, or are they shipping like the exact versions? Or like release versions, if that makes sense?
Yeah, they are currently would be shipping release versions. Yeah.
Okay. I think that thinking about it, if I was going to try to like figure out how to review it, I think if we made it so that they ship a pre-release, then I'd be very comfortable being like, cool, this looks reasonable. Let's release it, or let's merge it, release the pre-release package, verify that it all works as integrated, and then switch that on to do for real. Yeah,
for Maven Central, they have this staging approach where you essentially upload your artifacts, and only after And then in the second step, you would promote them to be visible in public. For Rust, I need to look up how to do that. That wasn't immediately clear to me.
That would
Whether
be the one
create
thing.
also as a staging or test environment.
And actually, while I'm looking, let me do my OneDrive by.
I mean, we could also disable the publishing and just have the branch creation. And
I mean, that would also work. That's what we did before, and then you can do it locally. The Rust one, I have one comment, which is the thing that Ben talked to me about a while back, which I agree with. Which instead of calling it Substrate Protobuf, we should call it Substrate Prost. Because like there's multiple generators for it.
Yeah,
at some point, someone's going to want to generate protobuf with the other one.
Yeah, it's fine. I reserved the name already, Substrate Protobuf, so if we ever wanted to use it, we could. It's okay, I can do the Prost one. Yeah.
But cool. Now, I'll make some time to look at that either today or tomorrow. I want to get this stuff in. Cool. Well, thanks, everyone. If any other final topics in the last 3 minutes?
So I will miss next meeting. I will be coming back to US on that day. Yeah. So I'll see you in a month.